Now, the need for people to get their stories out to the world has found its place on social media. Even before the global pandemic and lockdowns around the world, people were putting their lives online. But it takes a real storyteller to shape social media stories into being more accessible. Former mainstream journalist Yusuf Omar has been traveling the world, literally living out of his suitcase, and he joins us now to tell us more about #OurStories.
Credibility but lacks diversity. User-generated content has authenticity.
I want to be a journalist.
If we empower a generation of young people to tell stories with their phones, user-generated content can become so much more than breaking news and viral videos. Global stories from people's perspectives, change makers, innovators, unsung heroes. This is #OurStories.
What's yours?
Yusuf, there's no question about the fact that you've been able to carve out a niche for yourself, especially based on mobile journalism, and really pushing it, I think, to some of the limits that it can go to. Talk to me about the #OurStories.
Yeah, so as you know, I came from traditional media. I used to work at ENCA with yourself. I worked at CNN in London. And time again, I saw two major things. One, traditional media missed some of the biggest stories of our time. They didn't think Trump was going to win the US elections. They didn't think that Brexit was going to take place in the UK. Even in South Africa, the fees must fall movement and those kinds of movements. Traditional media weren't always the ones that were on top of it. It was people on the ground with mobile phones. And we saw this since 9/11. The biggest stories of our time were broadcast by people themselves. So we figured if we could go around the world and train communities how to tell stories with phones and with wearable camera glasses, and we could use special techniques to train people like these augmented reality features that can put, toilet paper on my head or disseminate COVID-19 advice like don't touch a face. If we could do all of this, we could give birth to a new kind of newsroom driven by people with mobile phones. And that's what we call Mojo, mobile journalism. So my co-founders, Yusuf Omar and I, we trained communities in 140 countries how to tell stories with their phones. And we started curating it into shows. And now we produce a daily show on Snapchat and other platforms. We reached over 1 billion views in 2019. And we're really, really focused on stories about people changing the world. That's the other major focus. We find traditional media often focuses on negativity. The old maximum is if it bleeds, it leads. Bloody front pages of newspapers sold more newspapers. We want to focus on stories of people making positivity, optimism, hope, innovators, change makers, and unsung heroes, Cathy.
Yusuf, it's quite interesting because this content is available online. And so when you curate it, what are you effectively doing to this information so that somebody who has come across it on their timeline still wants to come on and log on to your show and watch it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a bunch of criteria for a kind of story that we will do. One, it has to be factually accurate, right? So we have a team of over 17 people now who are fact-checking and verifying and making sure that the information is legitimate and raising the quality of that narrative. And then I think it's about how you package it. Our generation don't watch content in the same way that people watch on television. We watch it in the stories format. It has to be clickable. We want to interact with the format, so we try to give them augmented reality lenses. So they don't just comment below, but they share a video selfie responding to your content. I think interactivity is the name of the game. People nowadays don't just want to sit back as a lean back experience and soak it in like you'd watch a movie or Netflix. They want a lean forward experience where they engage with it, where they tap, where they comment, where they actually consume with their face. And I think more and more we're trying to create content that it introduces the idea that you can watch a piece of content and then you can share your video after that, and then that produces the next piece of content.
Yusuf, how much harder does that make your work?
I think in some respects it makes it harder, and in other ways it makes it easier. I mean, the old saying with journalism is that the more angles you have, the more perspectives, and for me that means more truth. And nowadays we simply have more angles on a story than we've ever had access to before, and I think that's fundamentally a good thing. I think the challenge becomes nowadays is when everybody has power to create content, when you have the democratization of media, the advent of fake news becomes real, right? The opportunity for people to manipulate information. I think that the challenge going forward is going to be, how do we continue to verify at scale? How do we continue to fact check at scale? Because as you know, in journalism, it's all about the truth. The moment you get it wrong, you lose the respect of the audience. I think what is helping us a lot is technology. As I keep going through, we keep using augmented reality. I mean, for example, I could send you an effect like this right now, and I could ask you what's happened in your community, and you could answer that. Where is it taking place? And you could answer that. When's it happening? So we're more and more being able to introduce the very basics, the fundamentals of journalism right into your camera so that you've got everything you need to be able to tell a story.
All right, I'll tell you what, that looks like a really great picture there, if that's what the future of journalism is, a changing face, changing story. And I think Yusuf has done a good job of actually demonstrating how many times stories do change. Look at that. I mean, how long do you spend coming up with all of this, Yusuf?
Cathy, it's a constant work in progress, but we're not alone. I mean, we've got a fantastic team, and if there's any young South Africans that are watching, they don't even need to have experience in journalism. They've just got to be inquisitive and innovative and get in touch with us. We'd love to work with you. We're hiring for motion graphics designers, lens creators, social media managers, journalists, producers. I know a lot of people right now are struggling to find work. We are in a fortunate position where we are hiring, so definitely get in touch with me if you want to be at the front and center of innovation, technology, and people.
I tell you what, I'll need a lot of concentration to keep listening to what you're saying. I'm so fascinated by how it all just moves so quickly.
It's really incredible, isn't it?
It is, it is. Absolutely lovely work coming there from one of my former colleagues, Yusuf Omar.